Hey there, fellow soil enthusiasts. If you've been following along on Grow with Soil, you know I'm always experimenting with ways to improve our garden ecosystems, but last week, something happened that absolutely blew my mind. I poured a simple mixture into my tired garden bed, and, within just 3 days, I had worms everywhere. Not a few stragglers, I'm talking about a thriving population that transformed my soil from lifeless to literally alive. Let me share exactly what I did, why it worked so spectacularly, and how you can replicate these results in your own garden. Here's what I poured into my soil that acted like a worm magnet: a mixture of brewed coffee grounds, unsulfured molasses, and water. I know it sounds almost too simple, but stick with me because the science behind this is fascinating. I combined about 2 cups of used coffee grounds with 2 tablespoons of unsulfured molasses in a 5-gallon bucket of water. After letting it sit overnight to really blend together, I poured this dark, rich mixture directly onto my garden bed. So, the coffee grounds provide nitrogen and organic matter, while the molasses acts as a food source for beneficial microorganisms. Together, they create an irresistible environment for earthworms. You know, earthworms are incredibly sensitive to their environment. They're not just randomly wandering through soil, they're actively seeking out the best conditions for feeding and reproduction. When you pour this mixture into your soil, you're essentially sending out a dinner invitation that worms can't refuse. The coffee grounds break down quickly and create pockets of organic matter that worms love to feed on. But here's the really clever part: the molasses feeds the bacterial population in your soil. As these bacteria multiply and feast on the sugars, they create even more food for the worms. It's like setting up a buffet that keeps replenishing itself. What really surprised me was the speed. I've used compost, manure, and other amendments before, and yes, they eventually attract worms, but this mixture brought them in so fast that I actually went out on day 3 just to check if I was imagining things. I wasn't. When I gently pulled back the mulch layer, there they were, fat, healthy earthworms working their way through the soil. Before we go further, let's talk about what makes worms choose one patch of soil over another. Earthworms need 3 main things: moisture, food, and the right pH level. Most garden soils can provide these, but often not in concentrations high enough to really attract and sustain a robust population. When I tested my soil before adding the mixture, it was decent, but uninspiring. The pH was around 6.5. Moisture was adequate from regular watering, but the organic matter content was mediocre at best. The coffee grounds helped lower the pH just slightly, creating that perfect, slightly acidic environment worms prefer. The molasses solution also increased moisture retention, giving worms the damp conditions they need to breathe through their skin. What I found particularly interesting was that the worms didn't just show up, they stayed. A week later, I'm still seeing active worm castings in tunnels throughout the bed. That tells me we're not just attracting passing visitors, we're creating a habitat they want to call home. Let me walk you through exactly how to replicate this in your space. Start with your coffee grounds, and yes, used grounds work perfectly. I save mine throughout the week in a container with a loose lid. You want them slightly moist, but not dripping wet. If you don't drink coffee, just ask your local coffee shop. Most are happy to give away their used grounds for free. For the molasses, make sure you're using unsulfured molasses. The sulfured variety can actually harm beneficial soil organisms, which, kind of defeats the entire purpose. You can find unsulfured molasses at most grocery stores in the baking aisle, or at feed stores where it's sold for livestock. Alright, so go ahead and mix your ingredients in a large bucket. I usually use a 5-gallon one, but honestly, you can scale up or down depending on your garden size. After that, let this mixture sit for at least 12 hours before you use it. This waiting period, well, it really allows the molasses to dissolve completely and gives the coffee grounds enough time to release their nutrients into the water. When you're ready to apply, make sure to water your garden bed thoroughly first. You want the soil already moist so the mixture can penetrate deeply, instead of just sitting there on the surface. Then, pour your mixture evenly across the bed, focusing on areas where you want to concentrate worm activity. I like to apply it in the evening when temperatures are cooler, and there's less risk of evaporation. Don't dig around looking for worms on day 1, you'll just disturb the soil unnecessarily. Give it time. By day 3, you should start seeing signs of worm activity. Look for small castings on the soil surface and that slightly worked appearance that soil gets when worms are tunneling through it. So, the real transformation happens over the following weeks. As your worm population establishes itself, you'll notice improved soil structure, better water infiltration, and, honestly, healthier plant growth. Worms are incredible soil engineers, creating channels that allow air and water to move through the soil while depositing nutrient-rich castings as they feed. One thing I want to mention: this method works best in soil that already has some worm presence in the surrounding area. If your garden is completely devoid of worms due to heavy chemical use or compaction, you might need to introduce some worms first or address those underlying issues. I've been gardening for years, trying every soil amendment and trick in the book, but sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. This coffee and molasses mixture costs practically nothing, uses materials you might otherwise throw away, and delivers results faster than almost any other method I've tried. If you give this technique a try, I'd love to hear about your results. Drop a comment on the Grow with Soil YouTube channel and let me know how many days it took for your worms to arrive. And if you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button and share this with your gardening friends. The more people we can get building healthy worm-rich soil, the better our gardens, and our planet, will be. Happy gardening!